All right, welcome to the I Can Do It podcast. I'm here with Paul Scheet, a special guest tonight. He's out on the west coast of the United States. I'm down here in Florida. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Howdy.
So, how long you been a Yankees fan?
1969 was the year when I was a kid. Was when I first started following baseball. I was 8 years old. It was the year of the Miracle Mets, and I was always kind of a contrarian. Everybody else was Tom Seaver, Tom Seaver. I grew up in Connecticut, and I was like, no, I like the Yankees. I like their history. I had no idea what I was getting in for. Turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Yeah, you definitely had a much more winning as a Yankees fan than as a Mets fan. I kind of have a similar story. I grew up on Long Island, but my story is with the Jets. I unfortunately became a Jets fan in a neighborhood that was all Giants fans. Because I had an assistant defensive coordinator of the New York Jets lived on my block during the time of the Gastineau and Klecko. So I grew up as a Jets fan, and now I've had 50 years of misery as a Jets fan. So good thing
And
you
I,
got the Yankees and not the Mets.
And I'm a Giants fan. And again, it was the same thing. It was everybody when I was a kid was Joe Willie Namath, Joe Willie Namath, Joe
Yeah,
Willie Namath. And I'm like, no, Fran Tarkenton, because he was the Giants quarterback for a brief time. And then, ended up being, again, a lot better, happier time being a Giants fan than a Jets fan.
for sure. I can tell that my son is 20 years old, and he's been a miserable Jets fan all his life. And this is the first season he's actually been a little bit excited. So it'll be nice. We'll see what happens.
Well, I wouldn't count on too much. Aaron Rodgers is the most overrated quarterback in the history of football.
I'm hoping not. We'll see what happens, I guess. You know,
I
I'm
just
as
I live in this area, and the Niners consistently have beat him like a drum.
Yeah. Are you a Niners? Are you a Niners fan at all, or still a Giants fan?
Secondarily, I mean, if the Giants are out of it and the Niners are still alive, but it's like anything. I like the San Francisco Giants if the Yankees have been eliminated and the Giants are still going, that kind of thing.
Right. I got you. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, what's your overall take on the Yankees this year?
Uh, they got old. This is I'm a historian. I was a history teacher by nature, and this is 1965 all over again. The team all got old at the exact same time. If you go back and look at the 65 season when they finished a disappointing, I think it was seventh place or sixth place, and it was the first year after all they'd won five consecutive pennants. And this just is eerily like that. There's one good player, Aaron Judge, and quite frankly, an average player in Gleyber Torres, and the rest of the offense is just bad. There's no other word to describe it. They just can't hit. They'll rise
Yeah.
up every now and then, and like Saturday when they had an 8-run game, and you're like, okay, maybe this is it. And then it's like, nope, can't hit, and they're just that way. They've allowed the team to get old. I think the solution myself is already in the organization. I would hire Brian Sabian tomorrow. He built the Giants dynasty. They brought him in for one specific reason. He's loyal to the Yankees. It's where he started, and uh, he's an anti-analytics guy. And Cashman knew enough in the offseason that he had to get away a little bit from analytics. So that's specifically why I hired Sabian back, was let's get someone with a fresh take who's not just purely driven by numbers in the computer. And I think that's who the answer is. I think Cashman, I'm not like he's terrible. We've had more success than any other team, but I am. Cashman's time has come and gone. I think he'd be great as a president for the Yankees. Maybe make Sabian the general manager in charge of baseball operations, and Cashman can be overseeing him. But let Sabian make the day-to-day decisions. I think that's the answer for the future.
That's an interesting take because I'm not. I agree. Yankees have had a lot of success, but I argue that they've had the success despite Cashman. I mean, it's kind of pretty easy to be successful when you have an unlimited budget. Like for me, I'm 100% behind you about the over analytics, the over analyzing, the over too much of a computer, and I think I think Cashman's great at picking pitchers. I think he's done a great job of going out and getting inexpensive pitchers overall. But I just think he relies too much on analytics, and I think he's just been saved pretty much by uh, the ability to spend as much money as possible. I mean, we're seeing it with the
Well,
Mets. They tried it, it didn't work.
well, I think the one thing that doesn't make sense with the Yankees is you have a team that they've decided to build their offense around home runs, and it's a power-based offense. And yet you're a dominantly right-handed offense in Yankee Stadium. That's just a head scratcher. If you wanted to adapt that philosophy, then you should be like they were in the heyday and be a dominantly left-handed hitting team because that's what makes Yankee Stadium. I mean, if you want to pick the one single transaction that was the downfall of this team in the last 10 years, it's the trade for Stanton. Uh, and
Yeah.
when Stanton's on, he's as good a player in baseball for a 2 week to a month period. And I'm not sure he's done yet. But the bottom line is he's a right handed power hitter in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
And you already have Aaron Judge. You need a left-handed stud. Uh, the one that made me cry was I just swore they should have gone after Olson from the A's and paid whatever the Braves wanted or the A's wanted at the time. And that guy was born to play in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I remember. I was actually listening to another podcast, John Boy, and I don't know if you know John Boy Media at all, but he
Mm.
was doing his podcast on the Yankees, and that's one of the things they brought up is that the years that they won, they had three lefties, two or three lefties in the lineup, plus they had at least two switch hitters, and it could because it plays to the strength of the ballpark, which is having lefty hitters. And the only real lefty that we have in the lineup right now is Rizzo, and he is just I don't know. Maybe it's like you said, he's just old, and he's done. So there's I mean Bowers
I
has
don't
done
think he
okay, but
he hasn't been the same since he got into that collision with with back in the while back with Tatis at first base.
yeah,
Ever since that play when Tatis ran over him, and it wasn't a bad play, it was baseball.
right.
But that particular play, you go back and look since that date, he's been hitting sub 200, and I think he got something got hurt. And unlike to his credit, he's gutted his way through it, and not gone on the DL like Stanton does. When Stanton
Yeah.
has a hangnail, he's on the DL. He's played through it, but quite frankly, he's played through it to it as a detriment. They haven't had any offense.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, the argument that I would make is why is he still batting second and third? That makes no sense to me. I mean, the argument that I hear is, well, who are you going to put there? Well, let's put anybody there at this point. Let's make to me, a statement to Rizzo and whatever. Put him down in the lineup. Maybe he'll see some better pitching. I know that's not as much these days as it has been in the past. But if you're further down in the lineup, you might get better pitching to hit. I don't know. I think,
Well, I
well,
think we know the answer to that. I don't know. There the friendship between Aaron Judge and Rizzo is the deepest baseball friendship I've ever seen. I mean, I've literally seen those two guys together, and they're so. I think the reason he's there, quite frankly, is you don't want to tick off Judge because Judge is the franchise and Rizzo is his boy, and you
yeah.
know
Yeah, well, they did
if
sign Rizzo right before they got the Judge to sign the
if
deal.
you don't think that's one of the key reasons why Judge came there, the body language between those two, there's a friendship, that bond for whatever reason that they built with each other. And, friendship's great. I mean, my friends are an important part of my life, most important part next to family. And, those two guys love each other for whatever reason.
Yeah, I just the problem is right now for me is there's so many things that are wrong with the Yankees. It's you can't even like I wouldn't even know where to begin. You know,
I was disappointed they didn't sell yesterday. I was
oh
disappointed they didn't sell. This season, I was one of those people holding out hope. I didn't really till the weekend series with the Orioles. I hadn't given up hope. I
right,
hadn't. I was one of the people on the Yankees baseball website who was saying that they can do it, they can do it, they can do it, and I've finally given up hope. They just can't do it. I don't see it. I'd love to see them, surprise me because quite frankly, if you get in the American League as the third wild card, you get that American League Central team in round one, and you can make a deep run in these playoffs despite the horrible season they had. They only need to get that third wild card, but I haven't seen signs that they're gonna even sniff that.
No, definitely not the way. This was a key week, starting with, like you said, for the weekend. They're already down in the third game to the Rays after losing two. I thought they should sell too. The only issue that I thought was, who are they going to sell? You can't get rid of Stanton. He's old. He can't run. He has a no trade contract. You have uh, maybe Torres, which I'm good with. I'm not a big fan of Torres. I've never been a big fan of Torres, and I think we should have tried to trade him while he was hot, and now he's starting to cool off. And then who else? You going to get rid of DJ? You going to get rid of Rizzo? I don't know. Who are you going to sell?
You well, hang on. The one thing Cohen showed us this weekend is you can get rid of anybody if you're willing to chew enough money.
That's true. That's
I
true.
mean, they couldn't have gotten rid of Verlander for two prospects for goodness sakes, unless they went and chewed all that money. So anybody can be gotten rid of. It's just the matter of chewing the money, and I don't think Steinbrenner is comfortable with chewing 60 $100 million for a player who's not even on the roster. I mean, the whole Donaldson escapade proves that. They have the signs that you could have cut Donaldson back in the beginning of this year were there. He's just past his prime, but they didn't want to chew $26 million for a guy. That's why and what the really bad judgment is, maybe, and we fans are partially to blame for this. We made Aaron Hicks's life a living hell, and but there was still gas left in that tank. If there wasn't, then why is he, a stalwart on the first place team? He's a starter in the Orioles lineup, and the Orioles are ahead of us. So that's the one thing where the negativity, I'm on the, we got to stop this negativity as Yankee fans because, we're cutting off our nose to spite our face. We make things so horrible for a player who underperforms. And I understand the impulse is there. I can see why you want to boo, but we're getting guys to where they don't want to come here. They don't want to be a part of this negativity that, Sonny Gray, Hicks, the list goes on and on. Now Sanchez, for God's sakes, is tearing up with the Padres. And I was, on the let's get, Gary Sanchez and trade him for a hot dog bandwagon. But you know what? The guy still had something in the tank. And we're to blame for the negativity, but the front office is also to blame for not recognizing when a guy truly does have some gasoline still in his tank and trying to figure out how do we get out that what's left there. Gary Sanchez isn't a disaster. Sonny Gray isn't a disaster. Aaron Hicks isn't a disaster. How do we think outside the box? And I certainly don't know the answer because I'm not baseball genius, but how do we get outside the box to where we don't abandon players who still have something left in the tank and get something out of them? We've got to know how to ignore our fan base when necessary on players. I'm not necessarily talking about because
Yeah,
we're
but
getting rid of too many guys.
they did ignore us. I mean, there are. I mean, I understand Hicks and the Sanchez argument that even Gallo for a little while was doing okay elsewhere. I just think the Yankee fans gave them the opportunity. They wanted them to be successful, and then it was just so long of a time period where neither Gallo, Sanchez, or Hicks were able to perform, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And yeah, partly to blame the fans, but I also believe it has to do with, and you touched on it, the Yankees. I don't think their player development is any good. Um, I
I would
think
think that's a problem.
I think is they bring guys in and just throw them in the lineup, but I don't really think they do anything like you said to find when like Rizzo when they're struggling. What are they really doing to help him get out of it? I think they kind of just say, "Well, figure it out, or we're going to get somebody else." And uh,
Never should have fired Kevin Long as the hitting coach. Kevin Long is the hitting coach now on the Phillies. He's with Rob Thompson, who, but quite frankly, probably should have gotten a shot as Yankee manager at some point. He's doing a fairly good job with the Phillies. Took them to the World Series, for goodness sake, last year. And, they have not had the player development, with the exception of, like you said, they've done a fine job of maximizing the potential of their pitchers. I think they're getting every ounce of juice out of every pitcher on the staff. I mean, you know, the bullpen continues to be year after year after year after year in the top five in baseball. And so there is something, the pitching staff and the pitching coordinators and the pitching coaches, they're doing their job, but offensively and defensively, this team's not very good.
yeah, I mean, well, they are. We've gone to what 2 seasons now, including this season, without a left fielder. Like we went into this season looking for a left fielder that was supposed to be a priority of Cashman, and here we are past the 2023 trade deadline, and we still don't have a solid left fielder. I think they
Well,
keep trying
that's
to
that.
bring in some cheap fill-ins, and it's not working.
Well, that was the one I screamed it at the time on the Yankees baseball Facebook group, and you can go back and check. I wanted Tanaka so bad, and we had such a good history with Japanese players. Yeah, we had Keiagawa, who was a bust, but you look Tanaka, Matsui. We Japanese players have done so well here, and we should have had Tanaka. I mean, the Red Sox outsmarted us. Oh, by the way, show you some of my stuff here
Yeah, I was looking
in the
at it in the
background here.
background.
Yeah, that is a Yankees rug. That is my prized possession. It's the last gift, literally. My mother handmade that for me and gave it to me before she died. Uh, and that next to it is my Thurman Munson memorial. There we go. Trying to get this thing right. Anyway, this is every Thurman Munson baseball cap. He's my favorite Yankee of all time. There it
That's
is,
that's
right there.
funny because I actually am a huge Thurman Munson fan. Have been all my life, partly because his number was my birthday. So I
Yeah, and today is the 44th anniversary of his death.
oh I didn't even know that. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, today is the 44th anniversary of that tragedy. So that and a couple other cool things to show you. I was at Aaron Judge's 62nd home run. This was taken. I was sitting in the left field seats when he hit number 62.
Wow, that's great.
And this one, since I retired, I've been going to a lot of baseball. This is me on the Yankee Stadium Jumbotron. I was there the game where that was, I don't know if you remember last fall when they won 2-0 in a 7 inning rain abbreviated game on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. So I was
Okay.
at
Yeah.
I saw them quite a bit. And now I pick out a road series and I go to at least one or two road series a year. This year, my highlights were I was at Cincinnati for the 3-game sweep at the Great American Ballpark. And I went to the 3 games in Oakland, including the Herman Perfecto.
Oh,
I
you were
was
there for
there.
that. That's awesome.
I was there for that. In fact, I've got the ticket stub in my wallet.
So we just I know you're not watching, but it looks like Bader hit a double, and then Volpe just hit a 2-run homer to tie it. So that's good.
All right. Goody. I'll be
Yeah,
watching.
my most exciting game as a Yankees fan was my brother. I have two brothers, an older and a younger, and then my son, and we all were at Derek Jeter's 3,000th hit game at Yankee Stadium. So that for me was the highlight of my Yankee fandom. especially to be there with my brothers and my son. It was pretty exciting.
Oh
But
yeah, that
yeah,
would be awesome.
I'm wondering. I'm sitting here thinking, would I trade that in for a perfect game? I think I wouldn't. I think just the fact that it was Jeter and he went 5 for 5 and hit the home run for the 3,000th hit. I was like, yeah, I don't. I'd love to see a perfect game, but that was a pretty special day for us.
Yeah, the perfect game was amazing. I didn't even realize it. I was at the game and it was the sixth inning, and I was actually freezing, and I was wearing these same shorts that I'm wearing today, my Yankee shorts, and so I was like, it was a pretty boring game actually. They were up decidedly, and about the seventh inning, I thought I'm gonna leave, and then I looked at the scoreboard and I go 0 hits, and I said to the guy next to me, there was an old fashioned baseball fan keeping score, and I said, has anybody reached first base? I can't remember anyone reaching first base, and he goes, no, he's got a perfecto, and I said, okay, we're staying.
So, what's your overall take on Aaron Boone?
I don't think he's why we're losing. I think Boone is able to win if he has the horses, but I would like to see a change. I don't think Don Mattingly is the answer.
I don't
Um,
either.
I don't know what the and I really who of these fans are out of the woodwork that think Derek Jeter's the answer is GM. That one's even more baffling to me. Um,
Well, he's a Yankee. He was the Miami GM, so they're
I
get.
got that.
It's wishful thinking, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, it is, and or the Paul O'Neill should be our hitting coach, and that he's going to leave the comfort of his basement to take a job for a pay cut as a hitting coach when he can, play golf every day. I mean,
Yeah, he's not going
they're
anywhere.
just yeah. I would like to see a proven winner. I would like to see an old school guy in as manager. Um,
Well, we had
hell,
that, and they got rid
I'd
of him.
like to bring. I I never understood firing Girardi. I will never understand firing Girardi. I know he flopped in Philadelphia, but I I like Joe Girardi. I would bring back Joe Girardi personally. Of all the available people I can think of, he would be my top choice to hire as a manager.
I think the argument against somebody like Girardi or Girardi and bringing him back is today's athletes they don't handle being yelled at, and plus they somebody like Girardi will push us back on analytics. So I think
Well, I
that's the
think
argument.
the being yelled at, that there's probably a lot of bit of truth there, because if you
Yeah.
look at I'm a huge baseball fan. I follow the whole sport, not just the Yankees, but the Yankees are my primary love. But let's talk about the St. Louis Cardinals for a second. They have a manager. That team has not been the same ever since that manager called out two of their stars publicly. And let's look at Tampa Bay. They haven't been the same since Kevin Cash ripped Wander Franco a new one. Um, there might be some truth to that, that you can't. Today's modern ball player is soft.
Yeah.
I'll agree, but you can't necessarily rip them, because the response of the modern ball player is, I quit. I'm not going to take this abuse. So you have to find someone who's able to know how to rip a guy, but rip him behind closed doors. Take him into your office and read him the riot act if necessary. But you don't leak that to the press. You don't, because today's ball player, a lot of them just quit once you rip them a new one. They just don't like to be told that they're anything but special publicly, and that's what I think Boone's strength is. There have been times where he's defended guys for the undefendable,
Yeah.
and that keeps them at least engaged. And I think if you're looking for something good about Aaron Boone, I think that's his thing. He understands how the modern ball player thinks. He's not that far removed from being a player. He knows that guys just don't respond to the ripping. Um, and I think that, you got to find someone who knows how to correct the guys, but knows how to do it behind closed doors.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Which I think that was the problem they had with Girardi was that. But I think for me, for the Yankees, the over analytics. Like I've never understood. My son plays baseball. He's in college and he plays baseball. And I asked him the other day. I was like, Cole, if you knew you were every day you didn't know where you were going to bat, is it easier or is it harder than if you know every day I'm going to be batting right fourth or fifth or fourth, and I know who's behind me and I know who's in front of me. And so for me, I watch every day. It's like a big deal. Oh, let's see the lineup. Who's batting where? And I don't understand that in baseball today. I don't understand that, and I don't understand the mandatory rest days. Where guys, well, this is his scheduled day to sit. I don't understand that either. What happened to the days where guys played 160 games and he only missed two because they were actually hurt, not, hangnail like you said with Stanton. So there's a lot about today's baseball game I like. I like the new rules. I think it makes the
I
game more.
love the new rules.
I think it makes it quicker. Thinks it makes it more exciting. But I think the analytics part and this mandatory uh, day off and we switched the lineups around and all this stuff. I think they ruin pitchers with I think they're trying to save pitchers and I think they're hurting pitchers in the long run. I've been around the game of baseball all my life. I've coached when my kid was younger and I know how it works with pitching and I think they take for advantage like if you look at the old pitchers like a Nolan Ryan, they would throw 140 pitches in a game. And I just don't understand. I think we're just ruining baseball to a certain degree by all over analyzing and that.
Well, I think the problem with analytics is when the Oakland A's introduced analytics, they were the only ones doing it. So the value of analytics was great at that time because they were the only ones practicing it. But if everybody, all 30 teams, now has an analytics department and has, however many, computer geeks, so to speak,
Yeah.
that are necessary to do it, the ability to get an edge through analytics is somewhat negated if everyone knows how to do them. You think you're going to outsmart me, well, I'll outsmart you, and everybody's a genius. So the analytics argument, I think, has been negated by the fact that so many teams, everybody's got a good analytics department. Who
Yeah.
doesn't?
Yeah. And I think the disparity, like it's mind boggling to me. You have the Rays and you have the Orioles, who are at the bottom end of the overall pay for their players, and you have the Yankees and the Mets, who are the top two salaries in the league, and they're at opposite ends of the winning. And in my opinion, the Yankees have been having issues with this for years, paying all this money. I think in the old days, like the Paul O'Neill days, they could buy players. It worked. I don't think it works anymore because I think they're using analytics to do it, and they're not using baseball, old school baseball field to do it.
I think that there is a definite over reliance on analytics. Um, some parts of analytics I think are valid, and I get into this argument with people all the time. I just have seen the numbers and I've seen it shown to me and demonstrated. Batting your best hitter second, I'm sorry, it does make sense. The number of extra at bats over a season that you get from batting two versus batting three,
Yeah.
you're talking about 30 at bats in the hands of a man like Aaron Judge. That's, typically, let's say 10 extra hits, of which three or four are home runs. Boy, that's a big difference over a 162 game season. So I do think analytics has, but I agree with you with the lineup should be steady.
Right.
Aaron Judge should be penciled in when he's healthy, right field, batting second every day, done. You know, unless he absolutely has to have a rest because he's worn out for whatever reason. But he should the rest should be coming from a player who goes to the manager and says, "Man, I'm just beat. I don't have 100% today. You'd be better off going with McKinney instead of me." Okay, I'm going to respect that. I'm going to sit you. You know what you need, but not because you tell him you need a rest today. Well,
Yeah.
now, if the player comes to you, that's a different thing, like I said, but not you go to the player and say you need, to rest.
Yeah, Stanton just hit a home run as well. Um, yeah, I think like for me, like a player like Volpe, I think it hurts him when he every day he does. He knows he's playing, but sometimes he's batting first, sometimes he's batting sixth, sometimes he's batting ninth. It's like give the kid some consistency. And I just think it's easier if players know exactly. I understand if you're going to take a guy out of the lineup because you're a righty versus lefty or a lefty versus righty situation. But in general, a player should know if I'm in the lineup, I'm batting fourth or I'm batting fifth. And I think that takes some of the edge off of being a player. And I don't understand the philosophy of moving the lineups around. It doesn't make sense to me.
And I think this season is basically done. So I am a firm believer that you bring up everyone who has any potential whatsoever, even Dominguez, who's had a terrible season in the minors, and you say to them, there's 40 games left in the year. You know what, kid? We don't even care how you perform. If you hit 150, I don't care. I'm just going to see you play. You know, People don't remember old school baseball in that Willie Mays went one for his first 21. And that lone hit was a home run off Warren Spahn, another Hall of Famer, probably the best left-hander in the history of the National League. You know, you got to give a guy a chance to fail. I would tell Volpe the rest of the year, you're batting ninth, you're playing shortstop, and kid, just relax. We don't care.
Yeah,
We don't care. Go out and play. Be loose. Enjoy.
I think they've kind of.
And
I think they've kind of done that to a certain degree. I mean, there's been they understand. I mean, they brought him up without him
but he
ever
goes on
playing
a hot
AAA.
streak and he gets moved up in the lineup and feels additional pressure.
Exactly.
Every time he has a good game, they want to reward him and yank him from where he's comfortable.
Yeah,
He
I
shouldn't
agree.
bat sixth or seventh. He's batting ninth. He's going to stay in the nine hole, and you know what? He's gonna grow.
Well,
Bring Peraza up. Bring
yep,
up Florial. Let's see what these guys have.
I agree
God knows we're not going to
100%.
make the wild card anyway. Let's close the door on some people and maybe open our eyes to others.
Yeah, and I think Volpe batting ninth actually makes sense. Maybe he's going to get a few less at bats, but he's now in that ninth spot. He gets on base, and now you have whoever the leadoff hitter is. They can maybe Torres or whoever else can get on, and then you have Judge. So you have Volpe, who's got great speed. He gets on base. And then you have the opportunity for the top of the lineup to move him around. I think he should be a lock in the ninth spot. Leave him there. Don't put Higashioka. Don't put Trevino when he was there. Don't put the new guy. Was it Rodved, whatever his name is?
Yeah, I can never pronounce his name.
Yeah, put Volpe in the ninth spot. You make a great point there. I definitely agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I just think, I think that the time has come for some changes. Like I said, I'd like to see an old school baseball man in as manager. I'd like to see Sabian be the GM. Um, you know, I just would love to see those two changes. I think Sabian is the answer because you have a general manager whose strength is building a team around pitching. He won 3 world championships in San Francisco built around that pitching staff. What's the best part of the Yankees? The pitching staff.
Right.
So find someone who knows how to build a team around that and put him at the general manager's realm. I 100% endorse that idea.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you said just a little while ago about I wanted the Yankees to sell, and I wanted Peraza up playing short. Volpe, I think if you put Volpe at second, he's going to do even better because there's less pressure for him at second. Kind of like what happened with Torres. I want Peraza at short. I want Volpe at second. Obviously Rizzo's there. I don't, we're not going to make a move on him right now. And then LeMahieu at third, or bring in somebody to play third, and then. But the problem is we need a left fielder, so maybe Florial. Bader in center, Judge in right, Stanton as the DH, and then go from there.
Yeah, and you probably, because of Judge's injury, need to balance that. He and Stanton can split right field and DH. When one is the DH, the other's the right fielder. And when one's the right fielder, the other's the DH because, you know, Judge coming off that injury, he's clearly not capable of playing right field every day.
Right. And I don't want him to because he's got a huge contract, really long contract, and the
Yeah, and
season
this
is
year's
pretty much
done.
this year's done. So let's not injure him so that he's done next year too. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be done. And the Yankees have to figure out, and I think, there's other messages around baseball. Uh, the San Diego Padres have demonstrated this year that if you've got superstars, but they don't like each other, that doesn't necessarily work either. So the Yankees have to figure out how to build team chemistry because they don't need to have necessarily the best player at every position, but they need to find a mix to where these guys, I think, I just outside of the Judge Rizzo friendship, I don't see that this team necessarily loves each other either.
Well,
And
I
they've got
think
to find a way to like each other.
Judge has a great relationship, it seems, with Volpe. He's kind of taken
Yeah.
him under his wing a little bit there. So I definitely think that's. You know what I was thinking while you said that is, do you remember the incident with Donaldson last season, where he supposedly said something that was allegedly racist or something along those
Yeah, the
lines?
whole thing with Tim Anderson.
Yeah, if you look, that was the moment where I think he started his slide and just kept going, and it ties into what you were saying about chemistry in the dugout. I think people didn't look at him the same. He felt it, and it affected his play. That's and I think I wonder what the culture is like in the Yankees clubhouse. And like people say, oh, Volpe, he should have never came up. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how can you expect a kid that's 22 years old to come into a team that's struggling? These mega stars are struggling, and you expect him to come out and tear it up when the clubhouse seems to be in a little bit of disarray, in my opinion.
I agree. And, it's like last year, huge part of the success was the unexpected contribution of a guy who's, Carpenter has shown with the Padres that, that was maybe a fluke because he certainly hasn't been tearing it up down there. But they liked him.
Right.
Carpenter was one of those guys that, as much as he was contributing on the field, they genuinely, the other Yankees you could see were rooting for him to succeed when he was up. I think that's a huge part of this team. They don't seem to care about each other's success. Other than Bader, I think, is the guy who's Mr. Positive, Mr. Cheerleader. Uh, I wish he could stay healthy more often than he does, but I think Bader is the one guy I don't want to trade and I don't want to give up on. He's a born New Yorker. He loves being a Yankee. I think Bader is now. If you depend on Harrison Bader to be your three-hole hitter and hit 300 and drive in 100 runs, you're mistaken. But I think Harrison Bader can be put in center field, hit 260, play Gold Glove defense, and drive in 70 clutch runs a year.
And steal
I
some
think he's
bases too.
capable of it and steal some bases when he's healthy.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, how much do you think the whole situation with Gallo, the whole situation that you mentioned earlier with Hicks, played into the possibility that the Yankee clubhouse isn't as cohesive as it should be? Because you got to figure they were friendly. They seemed to love Gallo. They definitely loved Hicks, and they're watching two of their friends just get beat up day in and day out by Yankee fans, and then you know, and so that has to affect the performance of the overall team if they're close to those players.
And I think that's a huge part of it. And I think we as Yankee fans need to know silence can speak the same thing as a boo. If when an Aaron Hicks goes up, the stadium is deadly quiet and it's almost as if, someone just died, that can convey the same message as ripping him a boo, saying he's not, a form of human life, etc. And that we as Yankee fans need to learn how to, you know what, if we don't like a guy, let's just shut up and be quiet when he's up. And we can cheer like hell when it's Aaron Judge or Gleyber Torres or any of the guys who's getting the job done. But if a guy's not getting the job done, rather than rip him a new one, silence will convey the same message, but it won't convey this atmosphere that you don't want to go to New York and play before those god awful fans. And I think we don't get guys are putting it's unthinkable, but there are superstar players in the last few years who, when they sign these contracts where you get to pick 10 teams you can't be traded to, people are putting down the Yankees as one of the 10 teams I don't want to go to.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
seen
can't
that.
believe that's happened in my lifetime. And we've got to look in the mirror and figure out that as Yankee fans, we can't have that situation. We can't have someone say, well, anywhere but the Yankees, I don't want to go to that place, and that part of looking in the mirror, we as Yankee fans have to do that. And the old, well, these guys get paid so much money, so I can boo if I want. Yes, you can. You have the constitutional right to boo. But ask yourself one question. Are you helping the team more by calling a guy a low form of life? And I'm keeping my language clean for your podcast. Are you helping the team out by tearing a guy a new one? Or are you helping the team more by just, you know what, this guy stinks. I'm not going to, my silence will speak volumes.
Well, I think you're seeing that with Rizzo. I haven't really seen too much of the booing happen for Rizzo, and his numbers are worse than Gallo's were over the last 2 months. And I think there's just, I guess, because he is Rizzo and he has a pedigree before him and went to a World Series, but they're giving him the silent treatment as when he strikes out or gets out, they're just kind of sitting there quiet,
And that's what
like,
we should do.
yeah, I would agree with that. It's tough though because part of the mystique of New York, whether you're a Mets fan, Giants fan, Jets fan, or Yankees fan, or any sport really, Islanders, Rangers, it's the Knicks, is that we are a little bit over the top, and
But we got to build a culture now. The times have changed. It's like what we talked about earlier. The modern ball player doesn't respond to getting ripped by his manager in the media. And
yeah.
you either have to understand that as a manager if you're going to manage in 2023 and 4, or you can, well, I'm going to rip them. Well, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Ask Oliver Marmol in St. Louis, and they've been a bigger disaster than the Yankees have been this year. He ripped his players in the media, and what does he have to show for it? Why did Tony La Russa fall apart in Chicago? He ripped some of those guys with the White Sox, and after 2 years, they just done with it. Same thing. We as fans, if we want to win into the future, we got to build an environment where guys want to come to New York, and we're going to have to rebuild this thing. You know, this is not a quick fix. The Yankees can't magically sign two guys next year in the off season, and suddenly, let's say hypothetically, Shohei Ohtani does come here. That's not necessarily going to make this into the top team in the American League. Shohei Ohtani's been paired with Mike Trout
Yep.
for his entire career, and they haven't been to the playoffs yet.
Well, and
And
Shohei
so what?
Ohtani doesn't fit in the current Yankee lineup because you have,
No,
unfortunately, you have Stanton locked in for a while, and Shohei Ohtani has to be a DH. He's not going to play the field. So when he's not
absolutely.
pitching, what are you going to do? Sit Stanton while he's DHing, and Stanton's only going to bat when Ohtani pitches?
Or
That's
you, the other alternative is there's finally your left fielder if you did sign him. If the dream scenario, and Shohei Ohtani's going to sign with the Dodgers. Anyone who thinks any differently is fooling themselves.
yeah. He wants to
He
stay on the West
said
Coast.
he wants to stay on the West Coast, and he said his top priority is winning. Hello, if that's not the LA Dodgers, then I don't know what is. So that's a done deal. And he loves the LA area. So he's going to be a Dodger. Just accept it. They've cut all that money. They didn't sign any free agency in the offseason. Translation, we're getting Shohei Ohtani. We're going to pay him 10 years, 600 million. Done.
Yeah, I think the only
Um,
way he doesn't end up at the Dodgers is if somebody just offers him astronomical money on top of
He's
like
not. He wants to win. If you watch that WBC, which by the way, that's another great thing that's
yeah,
coming to baseball. I love the WBC. You know, uh, and the joy at winning that thing. He wants to be on a winner. He, if someone offered him 10 years, $1 billion, but it was a team that stunk, he ain't going there.
yeah.
Money is not, if he'd take 10 years, 600 million from the Dodgers over 10 years, 100 million from the Oakland, or 1 billion from the Oakland A's,
Yeah, but you have
just
teams like,
hypothetically.
and I'm not saying the Mets, they don't seem like they would during their, but you have an owner like Steve Cohen that
Yeah.
had the possibility of offering him 70 million a year and or 80 75 million a year, and the Mets at, well, not this year now we know, but before this season it was talk that he was going to go after Otani and win championships. So that was a possibility. But you're right, I don't really see any other team that's willing to spend that kind of money above and beyond what the Dodgers are going to pay. That's a winning team in
I
in
think
the
the
near
Giants
future.
will offer it, but I don't think he wants to go to the Giants because Shohei loves to hit home runs. I think as much or more than he loves to pitch. And San Francisco's a dreadful park for hitting HRs.
Yeah.
It just is. So, it's why Judge ultimately didn't go there. I don't think Judge wanted to hit there. It's a hitter's graveyard unless you're juiced beyond belief like Barry Bonds. It's just not a great place to hit. So I think and again that gets back to the beginning of our conversation. You got to know what you are. San Francisco knows that, and they've built teams around pitching because they've got a pitching-based ballpark.
Right.
They won their 3 world championships based around pitching. The Yankees have Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Hello, sign some left-handed hitters and hit some home runs. Develop some left-handed hitters. When you're drafting players, give a decided edge to a guy who, if you're on the bubble between, do I take player A or player B here in the third round? You know what? Player A bats left handed. We're going to pick player A.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's one thing that's been missing for quite a while is the amount of lefties in the Yankees lineup. And I think that's a valid point. It'll be interesting to see what they do here in the offseason. I mean, they're still under the delusion that they are going to have a chance at this playoffs. Don't get me wrong, if they make it, I'll be happy, but I'm not really expecting it to happen. There's a piece of me that kind of doesn't want it to happen because I'm hoping it's a wake up call to some people in the front office. But I don't. I think they're all dug in. I think the front office, Hal and Cashman, and the anonymous analytics department, they think they're right and they know what they're doing, and it's just not working. But you might be right. A new GM, maybe, but I don't even think that'll happen. Excuse me.
I got to wonder, though, like I said, why did they hire Sabian?
I
Uh,
I don't know.
uh,
That's
because well, he loves the Yankees and he started his career there as an assistant general manager and scout before he went and took the head job in San Francisco. And you bring him back, Mr. Anti Analytics, Mr. Pitching comes first. I'm just saying, I got a feeling that hire was made by Hal so that he had something in his back pocket uh, if this didn't work out. I just think I'm really high on Brian Sabian, and I think Brian Sabian may be, because otherwise it makes no sense to hire Brian Sabian out of retirement.
Yeah, I guess time will tell. I think it's possible that Hal's waiting until the season's over to make any sort of change, and he's not. He's always been notorious for keeping everything to himself and very close to the vest. So maybe you're on the right track.
And,
I'd be
and you
happy.
know what? He doesn't want to fire people mid-season because he doesn't want to. That part of being his dad, you know, George bringing back Billy 5 times, I don't think Hal wants to be that part. He wants to be dignified and stable. Unlike, his dad was great, and I love George. He got, all those world championships. but George was not the epitome of dignity and grace.
No, definitely not. He was the Donald Trump of back then, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't think Hal wants to be that guy. You know, sometimes you don't want to be the worst trait of your father. Maybe the problem is you don't also want to be the best trait of your father. Because the best trait of George was he would win at all costs. And maybe Hal needs to get a little bit more in that area. But he definitely, you sometimes, if you, let's say your father was a drunk, the one thing I don't want to be is a drunk.
right.
And maybe you can work on that, but at the expense of you're not the good parts of what your old man was.
Yeah, I think honestly, my contention is I don't. I think the Yankees are very content as an organization on what they put out there. They bring guys in, they pay them money, but they put up some flash, hit some home runs, and they fill seats and sell tickets and sell merchandise. And they make boatloads of money year after year. I think this year is the one year where that's not panning out for them, and in their minds they're saying, "Well, we'll get back to that. We'll make money. Our fans won't leave. We're worldwide. Everybody loves us. So we're just going to ride the rest of the season out, and we'll be back to spring training and the hope, and we'll give hope and no change like Obama, but hope and to the fans later on."
You know, I think the question for the Yankees is if you want to look at the long term superstar picture of this team is, right now, if you're Garrett Cole, are you not going to pick up that opt out the way things are going?
It depends on what his options are. I think he saw Verlander go back to the Astros, and I know he wasn't supposedly not necessarily happy there, but he might be looking at that and going, maybe I can go somewhere else and be successful too. So maybe.
Guys want to win more than anything else. Winning and then getting rich is now the top priority with these athletes.
Well, he's already
Um,
rich, so
yeah, exactly. So I think he wants to go somewhere where he thinks he would win. And I think you got to get back to, making things again. There's got to be some figure. You need a master psychologist for this team, someone who can get the guys to build the culture of first and foremost, we like each other.
yeah.
And I don't think these guys do. I really don't.
You might be right. I mean, it doesn't look like they're as cohesive as past Yankee teams that have been very successful. The Jeter years with Mariano Rivera, and those years with Posada and Girardi and all that, they were definitely, and O'Neill, they were definitely close. And I don't think you see that as much right now.
No, like I said, outside of Rizzo and Judge, who have this unspeakable bond that I don't know, never seen anything like it. Um, there's got to be some thing to team build. I mean, we could honestly, you were talking about a guy to bring as a manager. I'll throw a name out at you,
Who?
sitting out there, Joe Madden. Joe Madden builds a culture where they love each other. They do crazy things like it's pajama day on the plane and everybody has to be in pajamas. Just something to make baseball fun. Make it so that these guys like each other. And it worked in two stops. It worked in Tampa Bay and it worked in Chicago. Granted, it didn't work with the Angels, but I think that's the function of the Angels, outside of the Mike Scioscia period where he had 10 years of success. The Angels just are the Angels. They just can't find a way to win. I think Joe Madden is a hell of a name to bring in as an old school manager who could get it done here.
You think he'd want to come and coach in New York, though?
I think Joe Madden would do anything if he were the highest paid manager in baseball.
Okay.
I really do. He's one of those guys. Why did he leave the Cubs to go to the Angels? Dollars.
Yeah.
The Angels literally doubled his salary.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I just
if you sign Joe Madden to a 5 year $20 million contract, which, by the way, baseball salaries have gone up, 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 up. Manager salaries have actually gone down. Torrey back in the day was making 7 million a year managing the Yankees. Nobody is making that kind of money to manage in baseball these days. Top salaries for a manager are like $2, $3 million, and that's the peak. So if you sign Joe Madden for a 5 year, $20 million contract, Joe Madden will be in your office tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is because they feel the managers aren't as important as they were in the
That's
past
the over
because the
reliance on analytics.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. No, in fact, Billy Beane has said that it doesn't matter who the A's manager is, as long as I'm doing my job. And he didn't put up a fight when Bob Melvin wanted to leave. He just, bye, go ahead, take the extra money, go to San Diego. I'll do just as well with Mark Kotze.
Yeah, yeah.
And that belief system isn't. I don't agree with that. I think the manager is the most important part because of the idea. Joe Torre wasn't the greatest X's and O's guy. He
No,
wasn't.
but
That's
his
why he had
players,
Don Zimmer.
yeah, his
That's why
players
Zimmer
loved
was
him.
sitting right next to him.
Yeah, his players
Zimmer,
loved him though.
yeah, because he built that culture. I'll tell you a guy who just won the world champion, Dusty Baker. I watched the Giants back in the day because they're right here in my backyard. Dusty Baker, terrible, terrible X's and O's manager, but guys love him and they'll run through a brick wall for him because he makes the Astros fun. You know what? And he's won at every stop he's been at. He's the only guy to win 5 divisions in 5 different cities. The guy builds because he knows how to motivate. And people don't understand that part of managing. You can bring in a bench coach who's got no personality, who can tell you when to pull the pitcher, when to do this, when to do that, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah,
Bring the nerd in to sit in the dugout and be bench coach, but get someone who the players genuinely like to be the manager.
I think you got a great point there. Absolutely, it'll be interesting to see how things turn out here for the rest of this season, and then how they handle the winter and the spring of next year. As a Yankees fan, I always hold out hope, and hopefully they
I
will.
I do too.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Well, I appreciate you coming on the I Can Say It podcast. It's been an absolutely fabulous conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you, so thank you very
I
much.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll put this will be on our YouTube, be on our Twitter, and it'll be on Spotify. So those of you listening, if you would like and follow on those, that'd be great. And thanks again, Paul. And I'll send you the links as soon as I have them.
Absolutely, and I'll pump it on my social media.
Sounds good. Thank you, Paul.